Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll free. 877-566-1020, or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. The Rays keep their winning streak, but lose their shortstop. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there. Here at 12:22 on this early Saturday morning. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. Number to call the show, 877-566-1020. A chock-full show due tonight. A 9-7 win in extra innings over the Toronto Blue Jays here tonight in Dunedin. A real exciting one. The Rays go down early. Probably the worst Tyler Glasnow start of the season. His 10th time on the mound, but they were able to come back a couple of times. They actually did not take the lead until the very end, which was the first grand slam of the season for the Rays, a 410-foot home run by Francisco Mejia, obviously with the bases loaded, that gave them a 9-5 lead in the top of the 12th. Diego Castillo locks it down for his first win of the season, and of course, I guess all the housekeeping, if you will. The win streak for the Rays is now to 8. They are a season-high watermark, 8 games above 500. They are just a game back out of first in the American League East in second place. And I believe they set the franchise record for, this was their 6th consecutive game scoring 7 or more runs. So yes, I know that is a bit of an arbitrary stat, but I suppose does hold some significance, and I think really puts into perspective the kind of run that the Rays are on right now as they put up 9 runs. Once again, the 12 innings certainly helped them accomplish that, but nevertheless, they do get it done. But I think before we really get into tonight's win, I think we really should discuss the trade that was made first. Earlier this afternoon, before the lineup card was released, the Rays announced a trade, or I guess the word of the trade was broken. The Rays send shortstop Willy Adames and pitcher Trevor Richards to the Milwaukee Brewers in exchange for a couple of right-handed relievers, J.P. Fireeisen and Drew Rasmussen. And tomorrow, or I guess really today, the May 22nd, is the 3rd anniversary of Willy Adames' Major League debut. It was at home at Tropicana Field against the Boston Red Sox, and in Willy Adames' first ever career plate appearance, it was a solo home run off of Chris Sale. So, that the timing of it is a bit strange. And I think this really did shock a lot of people. We've been saying really this whole season going into the year, even if you go back to the shows that we did during spring training, Willy Adames' days were numbered in a Rays uniform, and his performance offensively certainly did not do much to, I guess, help him in that if, he wanted to stay in Tampa Bay, which he obviously did. He said there was lots of tears coming, when he found word of the trade, and he was actually in Dunedin at the ballpark getting ready for the game when he was, I guess, informed of the trade, and that was a very weird send-off for him as he's now packing his bags for Milwaukee. But with really the clog up of depth in the infield, usually you don't think of having depth as a bad thing, or you can't really have too much depth. I think that's kind of an oxymoron, but with everyone that the Rays had in the minor league system that are going to be playing the infield, Taylor Walls, who we expect to be called up, I guess, tomorrow in a corresponding move. They're probably going to send maybe a pitcher down. We're not exactly sure. They've got obviously Wander Franco, who's the shortstop of the future, and now I guess opens the door wide open for him to be the everyday shortstop whenever it is that he's ready to come up to the bigs. I wouldn't anticipate any earlier than September of this season, so that's 2022 and beyond. And then also guys like Vidal Brujan. There's several among the minor league system, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this move came, less than a week after Ji-Man Choi was brought up to the active roster, and he's been playing every day. It does not look like that arthroscopic knee surgery in spring training for Ji-Man Choi is holding him back at all. He's been healthy, playing almost every day, and not to mention playing out of his mind. And so Yoshi Tsutsugo was sent off a couple weeks ago, and so Yandy Diaz was kind of the everyday first baseman. Ji-Man Choi is obviously brought back up. He's now the everyday first baseman. That moves Yandy Diaz to third. So, and Wendell, who's batting over 300, he needs everyday playing time right now. And his only other position, obviously, would be shortstop, as Brandon Lau is your everyday second baseman. And so, I think in a very odd way, Willy Adames ended up being kind of the odd man out. And I know when word of this trade initially came out, it was just Willy Adames to Brewers, and then speculation that they were getting pitching back in return. And Milwaukee's, obviously, they've got some notable pitchers. The relievers, Devin Williams, who was the Rookie of the Year last year. And then also they've got Josh Hader, who is regarded as one of the better relievers in baseball. There was some speculation is going to be one of those two. They've got a couple starters, Corbin Burns, who's been spectacular. And I didn't expect the Rays to get any of those guys, and it obviously ended up not being that way. I think this trade was, and we'll never, we will know at some point. I don't really think it was for the players that they got in return, like I was saying earlier. I think the trade was mainly made just to kind of clear the roster space and just kind of move forward. If you think about when Willy Adames was initially brought up, as I said, made his major league debut May 22nd of 2018 and went up and down a couple of times before really settling in June or July of 18. And the reason being is because the Rays at that time had an established everyday shortstop in Adeiny Hechavarria. They end up sending him to the Pittsburgh Pirates, I believe, in August, and then that really opened the door for Willy Adames to get everyday playing time. And there was a time where when Hechavarria and Adames were splitting time, like every other day, they were kind of flip-flopping, and Adames struggled to find consistency on the defensive end, and obviously still trying to establish himself as a major league hitter. And so that was a difficult thing for him. And the point I'm trying to make is that lane needed to be open. There was not going to be, Wander Franco up at the bigs, kind of, however you want to say, in Adames' shadow, or having Adames looking over his shoulder the entire time. When the Rays felt comfortable to make this move, they were going to make it, and they were going to have no reservation doing so. The Brewers, I think, president of baseball ops, or their GM, whoever's, I guess, running the show up there, they were saying that they've been in talks, in trade talks with the Rays about Willy Adames since the beginning of the season going into spring training. We knew that there was a lot of trade speculation surrounding Adames, even in the offseason following the World Series. The Cincinnati Reds were kind of a top trade candidate, and the common theme there is, teams with solid pitching that the Rays could get back in return, because I suppose you would say that was the need, as they're not able to afford kind of a top-line hitter. So, the pitching prospects or whatever is what they're looking to get in return. And so the Brewers, I guess, have been all in on Willy Adames all along. They have that big hole at shortstop that they need to get filled. And, I mean, they're a game under 500 right now, but that was a move that they felt like they needed to make. Adames, I think, this is his last year prior to his arbitration years, but he'll be under team control through 2024. So, they'll still be able to have him at a rather affordable rate through then, and I think he does hold some value. He was a top prospect in the Rays system for the couple years after they acquired him. If you'll recall, Willy Adames came over from the Detroit Tigers system in that trade in 2013 when the Rays sent over David Price. Let me check. I believe that was 2013, but it could have been. It was actually the trade deadline of 2014. That's right. Yep. And then they were trying to make that late season postseason push. So as I said, he was a regarded prospect and came up for a couple years. He'll certainly be missed. I was hard on him at times, yes, and I've been well aware that his days as a Ray were going to come to an end. I didn't necessarily expect it to be this soon, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily surprise me. There's a lot of guys that are ready to come up. Taylor Walls, a 24-year-old switch-hitting shortstop, but it can also play second and third. He's long been regarded the best defensive player in the entire organization, so very high praises for Taylor Walls, a product out of Florida State. And he'll be, I guess, making his Major League debut sometime shortly. A little interesting anecdote about Taylor Walls. We won't know until it happens. There's a couple candidates tomorrow, but if all things, I guess, go our way, Taylor Walls will be the 20,000th player to ever appear in a Major League game. I think there's a pitcher for the Rockies and a catcher for the Rockies and I think a pitcher for someone else that could be making their Major League debut. But if Taylor Walls does that before either of them, he would be the 20,000th player, which, again, more, I guess kind of an anecdotal thing for sure. But getting back to Adames and where he stood, he finished 2018 and really only kind of played the second half, batting .278 with 10 home runs in 85 games and recording 2 wins above replacement. And, like I said, struggled to find consistency, but did not really get everyday playing time until the end there, as the Rays did make a pretty decent playoff push at the end of 2018 as well. And then in 2019, I guess kind of his coming out party, was an everyday player, playing 152 games at shortstop, so only having 10 games off. Finished the season with 2.1 defensive wins above replacement, batted .254 with 20 home runs, 52 RBIs, and 69 runs scored. And then overall recorded 4.2 wins above replacement, which is pretty good for a guy in really his first full Major League season. Of course, had the home run in Game 3 of the ALDS at home against the Astros, and then of course in Game 4 was the receiving end, or I guess one of the members in what will forever be known as the relay. Yordan Alvarez double to deep center. Kiermaier gets the carom off the wall, throws a dart to the chest of Adames to d'Arnaud, and d'Arnaud tagging out Jose Altuve at the plate. That secured a pretty decent, or an extremely important win for them. So I think that is probably what he'll be most known as, but was an everyday player. He also played 54 out of the 60 regular season games in 2020, and was decent in the postseason. He batted .259 in the regular season with 8 home runs, which in 60 or 54 games for him is not bad. He batted .143 with 1 run batted in the World Series. He was also the final out. And so far this season was batting .197 with 5 home runs and 15 knocked in 41 games so far. So 41 games in... and so he got more, or I guess less days off than we thought. as so far this season, I guess going into today, the Rays had played 44 games. So he had only gotten 3 off days. And I was kind of saying that the amount of off days he had gotten was maybe a sign that his days were coming to an end. But I did not realize how much he had been playing. And part of that could have been just because the one from 60 to 162, trying to keep him healthy, whatever. Also interesting of note for Adames, yesterday's game, or I guess 2 days ago now, or actually scratch that, the game before that, I'm talking the 9-7 win over the Orioles that came on Wednesday night, and Adames made the final out, getting the force at second base, and he kind of looked like he hurt his calf maybe, and he was kind of laying on the ground for a couple minutes after the final out was made. Cash and the trainer comes out and checks on him, and after the game, Cash said he was fine, but we're going to give him the day off tomorrow. We were going to do it anyway, I guess day game after night game, whatever. And little do we know, he does not end up playing another game in a Rays uniform, and that ended up being the end. Very much a strange way for his Rays tenure to come to an end, and really I think in some ways the end of an era, because when I think of Willy Adames, I really associate him with Jake Bauers because they kind of came up at the same time, and that was when they turned their season around. I think they had one of the best records in the major leagues in the second half of that season, and it was because, the kids, Adames and Bauers and even Brandon Lau, Austin Meadows, Tyler Glasnow towards the end of that season coming on strong. And all those players that we know and love now and took them to the World Series last year, 2018 is really where they got their start. And I think Adames, the most notable out of all of those. So, and at a time where the Rays are playing games in Dunedin, the first, I guess, games in Pinellas County not played in Tropicana Field. Again, kind of an anecdotal thing, but, it certainly will be remembered. And the fact that that's when they traded Adames, it is a very kind of weird time right now. And also that they're red hot, as, again, they've won 8 in a row. They're, 8 games over 500, as they've really struggled to find their way in their early goings this season, as we're now a quarter way through the full 162 game year. So bye to Willy Adames. Thanks for the memories, Willie. I looked on you fondly. A player that always played with such energy, with such joy, with such excitement, always had a big smile on his face, but was also very excited when he came up in a big moment, or even a teammate coming up in a big moment. He was supportive, really more supportive of a guy than really I've ever seen, really in any sport. I know when Manuel Margot was struggling early last year, and him having to deal with the loss of his father, and making it with a new team and all that. It was Willy Adames who was said that really helped support Margot through those times to kind of keep his chin up. And boy, has Margot really solidified himself as a big part of this team, and really anyone. And I think has really been a kind of a liaison, a bridge between English and Spanish speaking players and coaches, as well as coming up the minor league system. Rather, I know a lot of reports and stuff was made on his, I guess, eagerness to learn English, and I was really fluent, was excellent speaking English, did his interviews in English and everything. He had a desire to be able to communicate with the media, with the fans, I think, and also with, obviously, his English speaking teammates, but also with him, Spanish being his first language, could communicate with almost all of his teammates. And, you would see, and I think shortstops typically do this anyway, but, pitching or mound visits, rather, where pitching coach Kyle Snyder would come to the mound, and sometimes there would be guys like, Diego Castillo, Jose Alvarado, a lot of, pitchers that have come through the Rays that are primarily Spanish-speaking, and, Kyle Snyder, just the English, I'm sure he knows some Spanish as part of his job, but, Adames, he's almost like a translator on the field, and I that was always something that I thought you couldn't really put a value on, and I think I haven't said it yet. I didn't want to lead with it because it is a bit of a cliche, but I really do believe that he is a clubhouse glue guy for really all the reasons that I mentioned. Always shows up to the park with a smile on his face. As a leader of the team, he's always been a guy that the media has gone to when the team is not going so well, and Adames always quick to say, we're going to get this thing turned around. We're confident in our guys. got to trust the process. It's a long season, etc. And never really got too down on himself. And then you look at Willy Adames, the player. I think down the line was a little bit frustrating defensively. I don't think he could have asked for more from him. I legitimately takes hits and runs off the board when he's at the shortstop position. But offensively, there was some frustrations. As we mentioned, he's batting 197 so far this season in 42 games played. I don't think that was going to change too much. I had concerns about the way that he was taking at bats. He was not very aggressive early in counts, was taking a lot of easy strikes early in counts. He would find himself down 0-2, something like that. And then he would be chasing pitches late in counts for strikeouts, and then I think really one of the most defining characteristics of him as an offensive player, he took a lot of strike threes and, fastballs down the middle, whatever. That's, the video of him, the final out of the 2020 World Series. That's kind of a prime example of that. But it seemed all too many times that he was taking those pitches with 2 strikes when you're, supposed to be protecting. So I don't know if that was him. Kind of confused. He was never quite able to predict what pitch was coming, or I don't know exactly what the issue was with him. There was also the big story throughout his Rays tenure, the Road Willy moniker, that his home road splits were very drastic in favor of kind of the contrast, that he was much better offensively on the road than he was at home. I think there was a couple games in 2020 where he wore clear goggles, I guess because the lights of Tropicana Field maybe was preventing him from seeing the baseball. So that was always a weird thing. I'm sure he will have a much better time offensively up in Milwaukee, and I don't know what the ballpark is called now. It'll always be Miller Park, to me at least, in Milwaukee. I've been there. It's a very interesting park, and that's where he'll be playing his games. I'm sure that the Brewers fans will come to love him, as I'm sure every other Rays fan did. I will miss him dearly, as I said, kind of the end of an era. And I guess with that being said, you look forward to what's next. I think certainly a couple of high ceiling, maybe somewhat low floor guys, both right-handed relievers coming back in return from the Brewers. JP Feyereisen and Drew Rasmussen. Looking at the two of these, we'll start with JP Feyereisen first. He is a 28-year-old right-hander. He made his major league debut of opening day last year. So both are, I think only Rasmussen is considered a rookie, but Feyereisen, less than a full season of major league experience. He was a 16th round pick out of Cleveland in 2014, and spent some time, I believe, in the Yankees minor league system as well. In 2021, in 2021, he has had 21 appearances, 0-2 record with a 3.26 earned run average and a walks and hits per inning pitched of 1.09, which is fairly good as far as I know. Is in his major league career is pitched to a 4.08 earned run average, which I would say is probably average. We will find out more about these guys in the coming days. I mean, I'm sure as early as tomorrow. If you live in the area, Sunday's paper, the Tampa Bay Times, would be perfect to pick up, as I'm sure Mark Tompkin will kind of have a detail in there about both of them. But just watching like a 2-minute highlight video, he's got a pretty nasty slider changeup combo that has some pretty decent movement. Obviously, Eric Neander saw something in these two pitchers. He wasn't going to give up Adames for nothing. He did certainly still have value, and I think has kind of a low to mid-90s fastball, but some pretty nasty off-speed pitches. So, and I know the first thing that they always say when we bring in a pitcher, really of any kind, Stetson Alley, etc., is, Kyle Snyder, he's just going to, sprinkle his pixie dust on these guys, and they're going to have some kind of career resurrection, which very well could happen. I think was the case for Nick Anderson, who I think should still be considered perhaps the best reliever in baseball. So who knows what either of these guys will end up being. And then I think potentially more of an interesting story, the 25-year-old right-hander Drew Rasmussen. He has been drafted, I think, 3 times, 2 Tommy John surgeries throughout his career dating back to his college days at Oregon State. One of the teams that drafted him, and the highest that he ever went drafted, was the Tampa Bay Rays. Drafted 31 overall in 2017. He did not sign. I'm not sure if that was a money thing or what. He didn't even play another college game. He underwent Tommy John surgery that September, which forced him to miss all of the 2018 season, and then ended up being drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers, I'm assuming. Yeah, in the 6th round of the 2018 draft. Made his major league debut on August 19th of 2020 and threw 2 scoreless innings. In the 2021 season so far, he's got 1 save in 15 games. His major league statistics to date, he has a 1-1 record with a 5.01 earned run average, 46 strikeouts, and again that 1 save, as I mentioned. So, out of all the highlights I saw of him, mostly fastballs. I mean, a 98, 99 mile an hour fastball, and obviously you can never have too many of those guys in your bullpen. I don't think it's been made official yet, as the Rays are gonna have to do quite a bit of roster shuffling. I think the word is one of these guys is going to go on the active roster, and one of them is going to go to AAA Durham. I guess you would assume Fireisen maybe would be going to the bigs because he's a little bit older, 28 years old, and the 25-year-old Rasmussen maybe could use some more time at AAA to maybe work on his other pitches. I think I saw that he's got 4 pitches, or maybe that was Fireisen. Again, we will learn more about these guys as time moves on a little bit, but that's going to be where we go right now with that. So we do look forward to seeing some of those guys, and as I said, that'll be a little bit shortly. And then also a couple of other roster moves that were made, at least today. I think this was even before the trade. Lewis Head was optioned to the Durham Bulls. I don't know how many options this guy could potentially have left. Maybe they'll have to clear him through waivers at some point, but he's optioned back down to AAA. And Brent Honeywell comes back up from Durham, warmed up in the bullpen tonight. I'm not sure what exactly the plans are for him, if they're going to bring up Fireisen or Rasmussen. I suspect maybe they would send him back down, but that's tough to say, certainly with options for him as well. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. So with all that being said, what we're going to do now is take a short break. When we return, we will discuss everything you need to know about tonight's 9-7 win. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays Post Game on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. I'd like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Spreaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
HBC.
And at 12:49, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Before we discuss tonight's win, I want to talk about the win that came on Thursday afternoon, which was the day game in Baltimore. The Rays won 10-1 going away. That extended the winning streak to 7. Rich Hill went 6 innings of 1 run as he continued his dominant stretch. His scoreless inning streak came to an end, I believe, at about 21 or 22 innings. So that was really an impressive stretch that he was on and got the win. He's now 3-1. And then the other 2 pitchers that appeared in the game are no longer on the active roster. Trevor Richards with a scoreless inning and looked really sharp, and he was included in the trade with Willy Adames sent over to Milwaukee. And he, like I said, he really looked sharp. I wonder if that was just them trying to boost his stock potentially a little bit. I'm not sure what goes into that, but he is no longer with the Rays and head with a couple scoreless innings to close out the game. And really the story of the game was the offense. Dean Kramer, the starter for the Orioles, not very good, gives up 4 runs over the 3 innings. And the Rays with the extra base hits and the long balls, 3 home runs, 2 from Joey Wendell, his 4th and 5th of the year, Rosarena's 7th. Wendell also adding in a double in there with 14, his 14th of the year rather, and Meadows with his 13th double. They scored 4 runs in the second inning and never looked back, tacking on 2 in the 6th, 3 in the 7th, and another run in the 9th. It was 9-1, and the Orioles go to a position pitcher to pitch, and just kind of an eephus type curveball. And it was Joey Wendell getting, I guess, kind of a cheapy home run off of it in a pretty easy home run park in Camden Yards as well. But no shame in a guy getting his 5th home run of the year. And good to see Willy Adames, wow, hopefully a bit of a slip there, sorry. Joey Wendell getting off to a nice little stretch, and he's been putting the ball in the air a lot more this season, which is good to see. So that's really all there is to say. Really cool just to get some matinee lunchtime baseball. I was watching the game. I had the final out. I heard it on the radio right as I was pulling in to work. So that was just kind of cool to get some daytime baseball. And they were in, obviously, Dunedin tonight as we transition over to that now. 9-7 in 12 innings. The first extra inning win of the season for the Rays, as they are now 1-3 in extras. So I think that's potentially of note as well. The 8th win in a row, 8 games over 500 at 27-19, which is that sounds good to say. 16-7 at this point on the road, and I believe they're on a really crazy stretch on the road as of late. And then they dropped the Toronto Blue Jays to 23-20, who are just 10-8 in TD Ballpark in Dunedin this year. And as I said, the Rays, I guess ESPN is saying that they're a game and a half out of first place. I don't know why that is. Now they're a game back out of first. So they're, again, within striking distance. The Boston Red Sox 10 games over at 28-18, and I think at this point the Rays are just waiting for the Red Sox to falter, and then at that point the Rays will be leading in the division. The Yankees also won. They had a triple play in the top of the 9th to keep it tied, and then a walk-off solo home run as they won 2-1 at home against the Chicago White Sox tonight. So the Yankees obviously still in the mix as well. In 4 hours and 26 minutes. That's got to be one of the longest games of the year as well. We don't have announced attendance as of late, but I believe it couldn't have been more than 1,500 fans in Dunedin, but mostly I would say Rays fans. There was the G-Man Choi chants throughout the game, which is always cool to see those kind of unprompted, not on the video board or anything. Certainly, the guy running the board for the Blue Jays doesn't want that to be happening. But a lot of cheering with the home runs. Obviously, the 2 from Brandon Lau and Choi getting his 2nd long ball of the year. So, exciting stuff there, and gave the Rays fans there certainly a lot to cheer about. It was 9 runs on 7 hits, no errors for the Rays, and for the Blue Jays, 7 runs on 11 hits, no errors for them. The starting pitcher tonight for the Rays was Tyler Glass, now getting his 10th start of the year. And boy, isn't it kind of interesting to see I guess, how far he's gotten buried in all this, because he's been one of the more interesting storylines, narratives to follow throughout the season, making his 10th start of the season. Ends up getting a no decision in 4 2/3, his shortest start of the year. Gives up 5 runs on 9 hits, walks 1, and strikes out only 2. 93 pitches, 61 for strikes. He establishes 16 first pitch strikes to the 22 men that he faced. So from that angle, looks really well. But Brian Anderson on the Bally Sports Sun broadcast kept saying maybe there's something fishy going on. I think this, not that he looked horrible, although he didn't look great. I mean, 9 hits, 5 runs, and not even 5 innings. Did not get a lot of swing and miss. I believe at one point he had the 42 strikes and only, I think, 6 of them were on swing and miss. So he was not really fooling anyone. That's really the point. His stuff was not very deceptive tonight. Even the curveball, which he leads all of major league pitchers in strikeouts via the curveball. So that was certainly a bit odd to see him not have as much success with that. Threw a lot of sliders early in counts, which did not go so well, and then threw a 2-0 slider to Vladimir Guerrero, which he absolutely obliterated. By the way, Vladimir Guerrero is on an absolute tear this season, hitting his 13th home run of the season on the second of the night. So he's absolutely unstoppable right now in this Blue Jays offense. Has looked terrific to start the year. So for Glasnow, it was interesting when he left. The Rays were down, I believe it was 5-3. So the game was certainly in question. It was hard to tell where it was going to go. The Blue Jays, they scored 2 runs in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, and they were up 3-0 at that point. And it really, things did not look that well. Either the Rays had passed up a lot of opportunities off of some not so good Blue Jays pitching, so and it was impressive that they were able to come back. So Glasnow ends up getting a no decision, and they use a slew of pitchers, 7 totals, 6 out of the bullpen. Diego Castillo ends up getting his first win of the season. He came in to get the final out of the 11th and got all 3 outs of the 12th inning, so that was good to see him get his first win. And then we'll talk about later, Jeffrey Springs, Kittredge, Fairbanks, Thompson, and McHugh all appearing as well. So things a bit up in the air for tomorrow as far as who can pitch. I mean, a lot of guys are going to need to go on back-to-backs, obviously. No one was on a back-to-back tonight, of course, because it was just Richards and Head, going yesterday. They're going to have, at the very least, Honeywell available if they don't send him down, and then maybe either Rasmussen or Fireeisen if they can get him down in time. I can't imagine that would be the case, but you never know. It's going to be a night game tomorrow, so you'll be able to watch the Lightning in the afternoon, so that works out certainly very well. And then for the Blue Jays, their starter Anthony Kay, the lefty, 4 innings, 2 runs, 4 hits, 4 walks as well, 91 pitches in 4 innings. What is this, a Blake Snell start? No, Anthony Kay. and as I said, the Rays passed up a lot of opportunities, a lot of 3-ball counts, a lot of 3-0 counts, and they were recording outs in almost all of those at-bats. So a lot of passed up opportunities. I was saving this anecdote as long as I could, but I got to drop it now. 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position, and the only hit that they had was the Mejia Grand Slam in the 12th. So they could have won that game while going 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position, which would have been absolutely nuts if he had just worked a bases loaded walk or something like that. Brett Phillips certainly had a chance to do that. He had a 3-0 count with the bases juiced in the 11th, and he struck out looking on a pitch that might have been a bit high, but was certainly fair. The home plate umpire, Jerry Mills, his strike zone, I would say, was pretty small, but at times did widen it. And I would say most likely his calls worked a bit in the favor of the Rays. We'll see the umpire scorecard as it comes out tomorrow, as that's always very interesting, albeit unofficial resource. The Rays, they saw, I think, by regulation's end, so through 9 innings, they had seen 170 pitches, and I know the game prior against the Orioles, they had seen over 200 pitches. So they've been seeing a ton of pitches lately. End up seeing 209 by the time all was said and done, and only 128 strikes. So about half of the pitches were balls, which is, to my point, that's absolutely absurd. The Rays lineup as a whole, they strike out 10 times and walk 10 times, and also with the 7 hits as well. So they were getting a lot of base runners. If you walk as many as you strike out, and both are in double digits, I mean, you're having a pretty busy night. And I know with 10 walks, what are you going to ask for more? A couple of those were intentional, though, but they certainly did pass up some opportunities, more so early on in the game. The lineup card that Cash sent out today, defense first in the outfield from left to right, it was Randy Arozarena in left, Kiermaier in center. In right field, it was Manuel Margot. And then in the infield from third to first, no more Willy Adames. Mike Brasso at third, Joey Wendell at shortstop, Brandon Lau at second. It was Yandy Diaz at first. Francisco Mejia did the catching, and the DH to start the game was Austin Meadows. I think, at least for right now, fairly standard lineup against lefties. The infield, I guess you would say right now until Taylor Walls comes up, is a bit thin, as Joey Wendell is going to have to play shortstop every day until Taylor Walls comes up. But like I said, that's going to be tomorrow. And also, just if I didn't mention it already, the Rays do anticipate Taylor Walls to get everyday playing time at shortstop. So I don't know where that leaves Joey Wendell, probably just as a utility guy at this point, unless he's going to play in a platoon situation at third. But with what Yandy Diaz is doing, it's really hard to take either of those guys out of the lineup. And then everyone else, as I said, was fairly standard. The way that the lineup was ordered, Arozarena led off, as he's continued to do quite consistently, followed by Meadows and Diaz. Brandon Lau hit cleanup, followed by Margot and Wendell, and a 7-8-9 of Francisco Mejia, Mike Brasso, and Kevin Kiermaier. And I have no problem with the way that lineup shakes out. Brandon Lau batting cleanup against lefties. You love to see it. That's what I've been calling for. Make him the everyday cleanup hitter. And then as Arozarena consistently at the top. Yandy at third is interesting. I like him better there than certainly cleanup, and Margot in the middle at 5 and Wendell at 6. Even Mejia at 7. I think that provides some nice juice towards the bottom of the order as well. It's going to be quite a bit to discuss, but I think we should go one by one just to kind of talk about everyone's performance, because Brandon Lau mainly is what I want to talk about. But let's discuss them all. Randy Arozarena in the leadoff spot went 0 for 3 with 3 walks, and guys were getting 6. I think pretty much everyone got 6 at bats except for Kevin Kiermaier and the guys that were pinch hit for. So Randy Arozarena 0 for 3 with 3 walks. His average is now down to 278, but an on base of 374. So an on base, basically 100 points over the average. He is getting on base quite a bit. I think he is really finding a nice groove here. Obviously, the numbers for him have been very good. He had his 7th homer of the year yesterday and has been on a tear as of late. Tore the Orioles apart in that 3-game set. Had a 2-homer game in there as well. And I think it was the hitting coach, Chad Mottola, was saying that they changed his stance a little bit at the plate, that he's a little bit lower to see the ball a little bit better, which I think will allow him to work more walks, but they said also to put the ball in the air a little bit more. So I think both of those things are coming to fold. He grounded out, initially called safe, but overturned upon review. To start the game, worked a leadoff walk in the 3rd, grounded out in the 4th, flew out to right with the bases empty in the 6th, walked with 2 outs and the bases clear in the 9th, and then also walked to load the bases in the 11th inning. So I'm not sure how much that really tells you, but that's what he put out there tonight. Was not putting the ball in play to an effective extent, but was walking and moved some base runners over. So that was good to see. Austin Meadows in the 2 spot, 1 for 4 with a walk and a strikeout, an average that's up to 229, as I think he is finding some consistency, maybe some success offensively, and on base at 328, so another guy that's walking an awful lot, and a slugging of 484, which is not bad either. So that would be an OPS rather of about 800, which is above average, and then was pinch ran for in the in the 10th inning by Brett Phillips, who got an at-bat in the 11th, and Phillips struck out looking, had the bases loaded with 2 outs, 3-0 count, ended up striking out looking, a curveball that just clipped the top of the zone there for Phillips. For Meadows, 1 out single in the first, walked to make it first and second with nobody out in the third, popped out to start the 5th, struck out to start the 7th, flew out with a man on and 2 outs in the 9th, and like I said, Phillips struck out looking in the 11th. Yandy Diaz in the 3 spot. It's hard to imagine he could have a day like this. 0 for 6 with a run scored. No walks, no strikeouts. That pretty much kills the average. I think it was up to 280. It's a reminder that it's still early in the season, and 0 for 6 can drop your batting average like 12 points. But an on base of 388 and a slugging of 315. So that's interesting. Singles has gotten a handful of doubles so far this season, but that is about it. Still looking for his first home run since August of 2020, and who knows when, if ever, that's going to come for Yandy Diaz. I'll just check to see if he came up with runners in scoring position. He did, and he was 0 for 3 in that regard. So was coming up in some big spots. His at-bats in the extra innings, he came up to start the 10th inning with Brett Phillips at second. So just a ground out to the opposite field, which he does very often, would have put him at third with 1 out. But he was just a tough pitch to fight off, and it ended up pulling it for a weak grounder, and Phillips was not able to advance. So an unproductive out, which is very rare for him, but was able to redeem himself in pretty much the identical situation, leading off the inning with Phillips at second base, is able to ground it to the right side and move Phillips over to third, and they end up winning the game there at the top of that frame. So that was good to see, and so I guess that was the bright side in his game, and played good at first, and then when G-Man Choi came into the game, moved over to third, and I thought played spectacular over at third base. I think he provides almost value defensively, if you could even say such a thing, so that's something I'm interested in. Brandon Lau in the cleanup spot at second base, getting in the lineup, including any cleanup against a lefty starter, goes 2 for 3 with 3 runs scored, 3 knocked in as well, and 3 walks, no strikeouts. An average that's up to 207, a 318 on base, slugging 420 as well, if that means anything to you. Got his first home run off of a lefty going into tonight's game. He had just 2 total bases overall in the season against left-handed pitching. An OPS, that's on base plus slugging of like 180, which is insane to me that that's even possible. I think was 2 for 42 with a couple singles against left-handed pitching. Walked in the first and then hit a home run. Let me just verify that this was the case. I believe got a fastball high and in, and absolutely demolished it with a man on base for a 2-run shot, which was good for his 8th of the season. And is only what would be his first of the night. 375 feet to right on a 1-2 count. How many 2-strike home runs have the Rays hit this year? It seems like they do that an awful lot. It was a fastball at 96, up and in, but not incredibly placed. And he was able to turn on it with his fast hands like he so often does for a home run. And then against Anthony Kay of the Blue Jays, he does it again. Or no, they made a pitching change. That would have been against another lefty, though, Travis Bergen, with 2 out and nobody on a 1-1 count, and a fastball at 92, kind of middle up, 409 to right, so kind of the same place in somewhat short right field. He was able to get the ball out of there, so 2 home runs. So, 2 total bases against left-handed pitching on the season going into tonight, and ended up with what? 9 total bases, so that's incredible. And ended up getting intentionally walked twice in extras, so that kind of inflates his numbers. So 3 walks, 2 home runs, which made for a really great night. His 8th and 9th home runs of the season, and as he's now close to the team lead in that regard, I think Zunino still holds that mark at 10, and someone is bound to take that away from him in the coming days, whether it's a Rosarena, Meadows, or Lau. But that's good to see that there's a lot of guys. Who knows, even Choi, if he continues at the paces that he's on, is going to catch up to all those guys as well. So a spectacular night for Brandon Lau. You think maybe he's going to turn the corner, especially against lefties, and would love to see him. As I said all year, needs to be the cleanup hitter every day. That's what he needs to do. He's a great power hitter. Comes up in those spots, so I would like to see that obviously continue. Manuel Margot goes 1 for 6 with no walks and a strikeout. He's been in a bit of a slump as of late. An average that's down to 233, and not walking much either, with an on base of just 266. So I don't know if he's going in the tank a little bit. Has looked good defensively, and did get an extra base hit as well, his 7th double of the season. But other than that, was not providing a whole lot. Goes 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position tonight as well, so kind of squandering some opportunities, and hopefully he'll come out of that slump that he's in at some point. Joey Wendell in the 6th spot goes 0 for 4 with 2 runs scored, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. He's batting still at 300, an on base of 353, and an incredibly high slugging percentage of 521. So, and I think that's the 2 home runs, the game prior, and all that stuff. So tonight got hit by a pitch in the 6th and was intentionally walked in the 12th. So that was the only So I guess the only 2 times that he reaches base is not really at all by his own doing, and struck out a couple times, but. The furthest thing from worried is he's the only everyday player that's hitting 300, and I think probably the only guy hitting 300, save for, of course, G-Man Choi. So enjoy Wendell 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. So those 3 guys, Wendell, Diaz, Margot, were tough games, and they were coming up in big spots, so that kind of is not good to see. I was going to say it hurts, but when you win, your 8th straight, I don't think you could say it hurts at all. And played good at shortstop. As I said, I don't know where the playing time comes from, but he's been spectacular. He's been one of your best offensive performers, so they're going to have to find some way to keep him in the lineup. Play the corner outfields, whatever you got to do. DH him, I don't know, but he's a great defender. So maybe they start DHing Yandy a little more, play him at 3rd, something like that. But then you're going to need to see probably Meadows play the field a little bit more, which you don't like. But we'll have to see what direction they go in there. In the 7th spot, Francisco Mejia, as he's now starting to get some more consistent playing time coming off the injured list. Tonight he goes 1 for 4 with a run scored, obviously, on the Grand Slam, the first Grand Slam of the year for the Rays. So 4 runs knocked in, 2 walks, and no strikeouts. An average that's down to 263 and on base at 337. But really the story of the game is his 2nd home run of the year in the top of the 12th with the bases loaded, and it was 2 outs, and it was absolutely terrific, was awesome to watch. You don't really think of him as a power hitter, but boy, did he crush it. 410 to right. So all the home runs tonight are going to right field. As long as did Choi's go to right field? I don't remember. It did. 407 to right for Choi. So yeah, all the home runs out to that kind of porch out there in right, or whatever you want to call it, the building over there. I think it was Francisco Mejia's banged off the roof of the building out there. So that was pretty cool to watch. And on the first pitch that he saw, 87-mile-an-hour changeup from the righty Beasley, kind of middled down and just crushed it. His first home run from the left side. It's been much better from the right side, but maybe that's a sign of things to come, that he's going to find some success over there from the left side. And how valuable would that be? And we've said it all year, to have a switch-hitting catcher who can hit for a good average and also has a little bit of pop in the bat. Every day, every passing day, that Blake Snell trade looks better and better in favor of the Rays. And impossible to think that I was upset when I first heard word of the trade. Obviously, I didn't really know who any of those guys were that we got in return until doing my own research. And Patino and Mejia have looked good, but there's another two that are coming up as well. Blake Hunt, a terrific catching prospect, and also Cole Wilcox, who is a spectacular pitcher as well. And so a lot of things to come, kind of like the Shane Baz aspect of the Chris Archer trade is like, what we got back was already good, but there's going to be an even potentially better piece coming along the way in a few years. So like I said, looks better and better every day. In the 8th spot, it was Mike Brasso playing third base, and he goes 1 for 2 tonight with a strikeout, an average that's up to 169 and on base at 221. His struggles, you would say, are still continuing, but as I said, it goes 1 for 2. Was pinch hit for in the 6th inning for Ji-Man Choi, and that situation, I think they were just going for righty-lefty there, and I think they were planning to do kind of that platoon anyway. It was the righty AJ Cole on for Toronto. So, yeah, they were going for righty-lefty there, and they had a man on base. So, Ji-Man Choi pinch hits, and at that point, Choi hitting his second home run already of the season. Started off 3-0, then the count went full after he took a couple strikes. Got a cutter kind of down and in, and boy, did he crush it. As I said, 407 to right, his second long ball of the year. And Ji-Man Choi, is hitting 471. I mean, he is on an absolute tear. It seems like he's coming up big every time he comes up to the plate. And the Ji-Man Choi chants were strong among maybe the 1,500 or so in TD Ballpark in Dunedin this evening. So that was really, really cool to see. And then the rest of the night grounded out to start the 9th inning, and then struck out also with a couple of men on and extras in the 11th, and then popped out after the Mejia grand slam in the 12th inning. So he got 4 at bats as a pinch hitter, which you don't see very often. But look forward to seeing Choi back in the lineup. It's amazing. Everyone is saying, Choi is not just going to be the sole answer to the struggles. It's going to take more. Well, maybe not. maybe all this team was missing was just Ji-Man Choi's smile in the lineup and in the dugout. I love to see what he's been putting out there so far. And talk about odd men out. I don't think Mike Brasso finds himself in a spectacular situation right now. I don't think he's going to get sent down. You might think about it just to get him some consistent playing time, because with Wendell, Diaz, Choi, Lau, Taylor Walsh, there's no room. There's no room for Brasso right now at really any position. So maybe just to get him to work things out with the bat, maybe just send him up to Durham for a little bit and let him figure things out. But I don't know. Batting 9th, Kevin Kiermaier, a rough night at the plate for him, to say the least. 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts, 229 average, 304 on base. I like the way he's been working at bats, but he is going to strike out quite a bit, and does it 3 times tonight in an 0 for 5. So goes 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position as well. So the big spot wasn't finding him too often. So as long as he's playing that way in center field, you'll take an occasional 0 for 5, and when he gives you that offensive spark, you can really run with it. So that's it. That's it for the lineup tonight. And the pitchers, we talked about Glasnow. I don't really have too much incredible things to say about anyone else. Jeffrey Springs is scoreless inning. Kittredge with 4 outs, scoreless, and he has looked very impressive and earned an average of just 129. And he's been dazzling this year. Pete Fairbanks finally with a comfortable inning, just 9 pitches, 2 strikeouts in what was a scoreless. I don't know if it was the 7th or the 8th, but he came in, I think, when the game was tied. Ryan Thompson with 2 scoreless innings in extras, did work himself into a couple of jams there, but did come out of it. I think there's so many pitchers in my scorebook, has so many guys, I'm losing track of who pitched where. So let me find the spots where Thompson did pitch. So Fairbanks pitched a scoreless 8th to keep it tied, and then Thompson pitched in the bottom of the 9th, 1, 2, 3 to keep it tied, and then pitched in the 10th as well. They had a runner at third with 1 out. Again, that would have been the walk-off. So the sacrifice play like that, you lose the game. They intentionally walk Vladdy, runners at the corners, so the double play, obviously, in play. Then Teoscar Hernandez strikes out swinging, and all Frisbee sliders pretty much away to get Hernandez there. And then gets Randall Grichuk to fly out as well, and was really working the slider heavy. Has been going fastball as of late, but those last couple times. But going back to the Frisbee slider, which is probably his bread and butter pitch, and good to see him have some success with it. And as we've mentioned, has not looked incredibly well when coming out to start a second inning, but passed the test tonight. That could have been the end of the game there, and that's the end of the winning streak, and everything kind of comes to a halt. And maybe we're talking a little bit more about Adames and everything instead of the success that the Rays are having. So good to see him come through in that spot there. Colin McHugh getting a couple of outs in the 11th. Nothing really that was his fault. I mean, he walked to load the bases with one out, so did put Castillo in a bit of a jam. He did get 2 outs and bases loaded. And then Castillo came in, bases loaded, 2 outs, tie game, bottom of the 11th, and struck out Marcus Semien, who was a single away from hitting for the cycle. So Castillo came up in a big spot there and ends up getting the win because of his not scoreless, did give up a couple of runs, but enough to keep it with the Rays in the lead. Rays finished the game with a 9-7 score, and the Rays come out of there with a couple of minutes after midnight. I believe it was 12:04 when the final out was made, and the Rays win 9-7 and 12, their first extra inning win, and again, their 8th in a row, 27-19. This team is unstoppable right now. You really like to see what this team is putting out. So, and one final note, Glasnow struggles against the Blue Jays continue. Not necessarily the same guys that were there in 2018 or 2019, but it doesn't. Maybe some guys just have struggles against the uniform. I don't know if that's a thing with Glasnow right now, but his long locks were whipping in the wind and Dunedin. That was kind of funny to see, but a bit of the struggles there. Gave up 5 runs his last time out against Toronto as well. So in a Cy Young type season, he's certainly in that conversation to start the year. A bit of a rough patch. Well, not even really. I mean, his last start was 2 innings over 8, or 2 runs over 8 innings against the Mets. But before then was struggling a bit. So an earned run average right now for him of 290. So still doing spectacular, but this is first time not getting through 5 in a no decision. Look forward to seeing him his next time out. It looks like potentially against Kansas City, and hopefully it'll be one of the games that I'm at. I'll be at the Tuesday and Wednesday games. And I haven't seen Glasnow yet this year, so that would be cool. But either way, now turning the page to tomorrow's game, Saturday night at 7:37. It is going to be, it looks like right now, Shane McClanahan against Robbie Ray, and I'm not sure how this rotation is going to end up shaking out for Tampa Bay. Michael Wacha is going to come back, and you're already really running a 6-man rotation with Glasnow, McClanahan, Fleming, Yarbrough, Patino, and Rich Hill. So I don't know if maybe Fleming goes down. That would be a hard thing to do. I would honestly say send McClanahan down, but I think he's here to stay. Sugar Shane, the 24-year-old left-hander, is 1-0 on the season with a 467 earned run average. I was there to see it his last time out, his first major league win against the New York Mets, pitching 5 1/3, 4 runs on 6 hits, 2 home runs allowed, a walk, 7 strikeouts, 75 pitches, which was not a career high, which was 80 pitches, but a career high 5 1/3. So could potentially do 6 ups again, you would think. So maybe get through 6, maybe push 80, 85 pitches perhaps. He's not ready to go 100 yet, you wouldn't think, but a USF grad pitching a Dunedin, it's kind of a cool thing. 4 innings of 3 runs against the A's, 4 innings scoreless against the Angels, and then 4 innings and 2 runs in his first start against the Athletics before that. So not much to say about him. I'm kind of holding off to make too much commentary until we see him a little bit more. I mean, he's not even fully stretched out, and he's trying to kind of get his footing underneath him as a major league player, but a guy that is definitely not lacking in confidence. And if you listen to him talk, though, I mean, it was interesting. He did an interview, I think, with Neil Solondz for This Week in Rays Baseball, and it was basically just him, Solondz asked him, what does it mean to be a major league pitcher with the Rays, kind of the hometown thing. And McClanahan was like, well, this is my job, and if I'm doing anything less than pitching in the big leagues, that's, below my expectations. So I very serious about it, and like I said, was not lacking in confidence. So this is where he thinks he should be, and who am I to argue him on that? I argue he could use some time in AAA, but the Rays obviously think otherwise. And across from him tomorrow night will be the 29-year-old left-hander Robbie Ray. Ray is 2-1 on the season with a .379 earned run average. He has faced the Rays this year. If you can think back to April 24th, if your memory even goes that far back, I'm not sure mine does at this point. Went 6 innings, 3 runs on 6 hits, no walks, 9 strikeouts. That was part of the stretch where the Rays were having that nasty stretch with runners in scoring position. I think it was like 3 for 59 when it was all said and done. And what was so interesting about that is Robbie Ray, that walks at least like 3 in every start, did not walk anyone. And it was interesting about that, had 3 walks in his first start, 6 walks the start after that. And since then, are you kidding me? In his next 5 starts, has walked 1 batter. And I'm talking 6, 12, 18, 24, 30 innings. In his last 30 innings, he's got only 1 walk. And as I said, that's kind of what he's known for, is he walks more than anyone in the bigs. So, but as of that, he's a great pitcher, a ton of strikeouts. So this might not be a great time to face him. His last time out, he got a win against the Phillies, 5 2/3, 4 runs on 7 hits, 3 homers though. He's given up a lot of homers over that stretch. So I'll take homers over walks any day. 6 innings of 3 runs against Atlanta, 3 runs on 6 hits, and 6 innings against the A's. So, kind of your average type stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 6 innings, 3 runs like he did the last time against Tampa Bay. And out of the bullpen, it's going to be a little bit iffy. Guys are going to have to pitch on back-to-backs. Let's say McClanahan gets you through 5. Springs can maybe get you another one. Fairbanks another one. Castillo maybe, although he pitched multiple innings, so maybe not. But, high leverage. Thompson pitching 2 innings would probably be out. McHugh, they don't really pitch him on back-to-back, so he's probably out as well. But you've got Brent Honeywell around. There could be a move coming. I'm not sure. Lewis Head is no longer on the big league roster, and that's about it. They pretty much emptied the bullpen tonight. I don't think they had Honeywell was the only other guy they could have used tonight. So I didn't realize that, but count your blessings that this game didn't go any further, because that would have really put them in a bit of a bind. I'm not sure when we're going to be on the air next. At the very earliest, it would be Monday night, potentially. I think that's an afternoon game. Moving over, things are going to be a bit tricky, trying to get the new Clearwater WHBC studio up and running. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. There's a weekday series against the Royals at home that I'll be going to those games. So maybe it takes a while, to get home and everything, but maybe doing some shows after those games. So my expectation is at some point during next week, I'll be back on the air. So make sure to follow us at WHBC Official on Twitter. The link to the show goes live directly on there when we're on the air. Also follow us on Spreaker.com where you're listening to the show, for all updates on that stuff as well. Thank you for everyone tuning into the program, everyone from the Rays Discord, from the Rays Reddit, all of those good places where I put the link out to the show. Appreciate everyone for tuning into the program. Love where the Rays are at right now. Hopefully they'll still be on a winning streak when we're on the air next. That would be pretty nuts. The Rays in Dunedin this weekend. That's very exciting. Lightning playoffs. A lot of good things to be excited about as a Tampa Bay sports fan. We'll talk to you soon.
Sports Radio 1 66. The Fan.
HBC.
New